Hello, our favorite humans. Welcome to Bronx Tales with your host, Bronxy B, and me. I'm Logan. Thank you for being here. Happy 4th of July, everybody. Please, everybody, enjoy yourself, but please be safe. I am begging you to be safe today. Guys, we have so much to talk about still with this case. This case is absolutely not over yet. We still need to get to the truth. We still have not been given the truth or even close to it. And there is still so much to dig into and talk about with this case. I do want to say that every freaking guilter in America has been saying, listen, guys, he said it out of his own mouth. He pleads guilty. He said he did it. It's over. Leave it alone. Just because he said he was guilty doesn't necessarily mean he was guilty. People in America every day plead guilty to things that they don't do, to crimes that they didn't necessarily commit or necessarily commit it in the way that the state is accusing them of committing a crime. Maybe someday I will tell the story of the crime that I pled guilty to that I did not do. I had to fight with a lab to prove my innocence. The federal government used a lab that said it proved me guilty. After years of fighting, I used 3 different labs that came with the exact opposite result that the federal government had. So that will be an interesting story for a different day. Until then, we'll stick with the IDAHO4, the Brent Kopaka case. All of mainstream media has the same headline right now: deal with the devil. And I can't help but think, although they say that Brent Kopaka is the devil, did Brent Kopaka make a deal with the devil? One of my wonderful commenters, her name is Claire Bear, she actually commented and stated it perfectly. She said, it's like reading a book, and when you get to the end and you're so involved in this book, you get to the end and the last pages are torn out. That's exactly how this feels. We don't have any answers. And unless we dig for them, we won't know them. You know who I bet is absolutely pissed right now is Miss Molly McMichael, because she was banking on testifying at this trial. And up until then, anytime she got in trouble, it was going to be thrown out, never to be spoken on again. And now she doesn't have that crutch to fall onto. No more trial for you, Miss Molly McMichael. You're going to have to go to jail when you get arrested now.
So
okay,
the
Mom.
drugs are not yours. Just
It's not my truck!
You can't use Bill Thompson as my friend anymore, because that won't matter.
God damn it.
The state would never have taken a plea deal on a case that they spent this much time on, in their eyes, thinking this is the person who did it. They deserve the death penalty, not just for the crimes he committed, but for the families as well, for justice for the victims and the families. The state would have never taken a plea deal on a case that they say is so strong, and the person deserves the death penalty and the family wants the death penalty. And that is what gets us pro-burgers to think that there is more to this case, that they also want things covered up. And that's why we are still gung-ho in talking about this case, whether Brent Kopaka said he's guilty or not. There are still things in this case, whether it's law enforcement, the frats, the university, or anything tied with the Aryan Brotherhood. It still needs to be uncovered. I can't help but notice how freaking skinny Brent Kopaka is. And that just leads me to believe, if I didn't already, that how skinny he is makes me think back to Richard Allen and when he went to jail, how his mental health and physical body deteriorated. And it looks like Brent Kopaka's very, very skinny. And I can't help but think maybe things are being done to him in jail. Maybe he's pleading guilty to make whatever is going on stop, whether it be his treatment in jail, threats, promises, anything along those lines. He may have copped out to a plea deal just to escape whatever is going on with him in this jail. Is he running from something in this jail? Is he being mistreated in jail? So many people in mainstream media have commented on Bryan Kohberger's body language or behavior or the way he answered questions in court the other day. And I just think, like, are you guys dumb? Because number one, I can't even begin to tell you how many people probably approached Bryan Kohberger prior to this hearing and told him exactly what he is and is not allowed to do, what he is and is not allowed to say, and how he is or is not allowed to act. He would have been talked to not only by Ann Taylor, possibly the prosecution, court staff, and 1,000% the guard before he was taken into the courtroom would have told him exactly what to do, what to say, and when to do it. He would have been advised to not speak a word, to stand in respect for the judge when he's answering a question, to use yes or no answers, and to not show any emotion on his face. That is what he would be directed to do. That is what I was directed to do, and my case was nothing of the sort of this case. As we've all seen, Steve G has made so many comments on everything, long, lengthy posts. He spoke a little bit on some things regarding the Kohberger family and when they placed their plane ticket and all sorts of other things. What I find odd from Steve G is this was his daughter, and he is begging for the details. He's begging to know the details of what happened. And I can't say that if this was me, my parents would want to know the details. I would think that would be devastating. That would be even more heartbreaking on top of the heartbreak they already have. Why does he want to know or see the details so bad? I find that just a tad bit odd. I want to know the details. I want to see the crime scene pictures. But my motive is completely different than Steve G's. I don't know why he would want to know that information about his own daughter and her death. Another thing about the Gonsalves family is they have claimed to be extremely religious, and I'm not knocking them or even trying to really talk bad about them. I just don't have an understanding on this as I'm not a religious person. But being that they are very religious and they are fighting for Bryan Kohberger to be shot and killed so bad, isn't that against their religion? Aren't you supposed to not be placing judgment no matter what the situation is? And you also are not supposed to play God and wish death upon somebody else? I understand the situation is different. I understand you believe that this man unalived your daughter, but even in those circumstances, isn't their religion teaching them to not play God or wish death upon anybody for any reason? Why are they so gung-ho on killing this man? And I know that guilters will say, well, he unalived their daughter horrifically. Yes, but does that trump their religion? Because their religion is supposed to trump everything else. And that's why I question that. This morning, Harsh Reality made a really good point that some people are saying Bryan Kohberger did a plea deal to escape the death penalty. And Harsh Reality said if he was so scared of the death penalty to begin with, why didn't he just commit the crime in Washington where there isn't a death penalty and he would have had the same outcome that he has now? That's what leads us to believe that there is something deeper. There is another reason why Bryan Kohberger copped out to a plea deal. And we're here to find the answers. I really want to know the position that Brent Kopaka played in this crime. He had a role in this crime. I don't know what it is, but Judge said the name Kopaka accidentally in a hearing Now, Judge is from a completely different state. I realize it's close, but Judge still should have not had information on Brent Kopaka to be saying his name accidentally in court when addressing Brian Kohberger. So we have Judge saying Kopaka's name. We have Steve G inserting Kopaka. We have Ann Taylor saying Kopaka could have been a perpetrator. And we have local law enforcement looking into Kopaka in the beginning for being the person who committed this crime. Could Kopaka been either there, a perpetrator, or could he have been a witness? Could he have known? He has a tie to this case, and again, we're bound and determined to find out what it is. Cy Ray was willing to risk a 40-year career on this case, and proving Brian Kohberger's phone data did not put him there or around there ever. If the data so clearly showed that Brian Kohberger was there and had been driving by there 23 times, that he had been there that night, why would Cy Ray, a professional, be so willing to risk his reputation and his career to show that that's not possible? This data doesn't add up and it's not true. And he was so willing to give up everything to show that Brian Kohberger's phone data did not fit what the prosecution was saying. And if it was incorrect and the state did have phone evidence, Cy Ray would never put his reputation and career on the line to back somebody when the state claims that they have such compelling evidence and phone evidence that puts him there. Cy Ray would never risk his reputation if he did not have specific facts and truth and data that showed the exact opposite. So there's a lady who recently posted a video on the animations of the crime scene, and she created this for Dateline and the Dateline episode. Now, I watched it and also commented, as there was a lot of details she stated in there that were absolutely incorrect. Whether you're viewing it from a guilter or a pro-burger, they were incorrect regardless. However, she states that there's proof of Xana being in the stairwell because there was blood evidence there. And then she also states that it proves Maddie and Kaylee were unalived first because their blood evidence was in Xana's room. So why in the hell would there not be blood evidence between the two rooms and the path that the perpetrators took? There's no possible way they could just seclude the blood evidence to just one room and then move to another room and it's just secluded to that room as well. No. What happened to the blood evidence between the rooms and the path that the perpetrators would have taken between the rooms? There would be something. And it seems like everybody is stating that there isn't. So who cleaned up the crime scene again? I'm going to ask again. Who cleaned up the crime scene? How did the blood transfer only from one bedroom into another bedroom and not on the pathway there? Who cleaned up this crime scene? If I could ask Brian Kohberger one question, it would be, did you ever go to the first floor? Because it will forever remain seared into my brain, the blood on the first floor handrail, the front door being wide open, and a bloody glove found out front. And according to the prosecution, who has such a compelling case, says he never went to the first floor. And in Brian Kohberger admitting guilt, he is saying he never went to the first floor. Basically, he's saying it without saying it, that he never went to the first floor. So how did the blood get on the handrail in between the first floor and second floor? Somebody, a perpetrator, would have had to transfer that blood onto the handrail of the first floor and gone out that front door. You cannot convince me that if Brent Kopaka really did do it, that he did it alone. I also find it interesting that they are keeping the documents sealed until after sentencing, and I can't really think of a reason why, considering the case is technically over. Brent Kopaka cannot back out of this deal now. That part is over. So there is no reason for these documents to be sealed, and the only thing I can think of is, are they being sealed so they can be altered or certain things taken away so it can't be seen by the public? Because there's no reason for the documents to remain sealed until after sentencing. And if they're doing that to be able to alter documents, change them, or remove them, this would give them time to do that. Some people seem to think that Brent Kopaka will not make it in jail. And I actually disagree. I think that if anybody, it would probably be the Aryan Brotherhood who would approach him to recruit him to their team. Not only has he on paper shown that he is not afraid to unalive somebody, and again, I say on paper, in his paperwork, it will show to anybody who asks that he is somebody who unalived somebody else. So they will see that he is not afraid to unalive somebody. He is white, and also he's very intelligent. And I can guarantee you Brent Kopaka is going to be working in the law library. If you want somebody on your side in jail, it's going to be somebody with brains that can help you with your case, not somebody who can fight. I'm sure they have enough of those people. So in my eyes, Aryan Brotherhood's going to try and recruit him, and Brent Kopaka is going to be very safe in jail. They will want him on their team so he can study their cases and help them in the law library. You know, many people have talked about the way Brent Kopaka looks in his demeanor and the way he spoke, and they want to say that he's just this monster and he looks like a monster and he looks so creepy, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think he looks like a monster in any way. I think the thing that people are focusing on that makes people think he looks like a psychopath is simply the fact that he has deep set eyes, and he can't help that. That's the way he was born. That's literally just his facial features. He doesn't look like a killer to me. He doesn't look like a psychopath. He just has really deep set eyes, and they're a little bit close together. So talking about his demeanor and the way he looks is pretty far off. He was nothing but respectful and kind and clear-spoken. He didn't do or say anything or look any certain way other than just how his natural presence is to make anybody say that he looks like a killer or he's creepy or anything about his demeanor. He didn't do anything. He didn't say anything other than yes, because he was advised to do that. He did exactly what somebody told him to do. So my question is, there may have been a deal with the devil, but I think it was Brent Kopaka making a deal with the devil. He's running from something. He's trying to get away from something, or he was promised a huge promise. And of course, none of this will be in any sort of paperwork or documents. But until he can tell us where to find the K-bar or any other questions that we have regarding the case that we weren't given, until he can give us some more information that proves he was there, that proves he did this, I still think that there's so much more beneath the surface. So I just wanted to talk about this channel, and now that the case is over, where we're going to be going with this channel. And I do want to say that, number one, it's not over. We are still going to be digging. We still have a lot of freaking questions here. More questions now than ever. So we have several things in the works right now. I am still waiting on several different FOIAs that I know if I'm interested in them, you guys will be interested in them. So those should be arriving very soon, and I want to go over those. On July 11th, the Prime documentary comes out, so we will be reporting on that. I have pre-ordered the James Patterson book, and we will actually be reading that aloud on the channel. So you guys don't have to purchase the book. I will read it to you. I'll read you a little bedtime story. We're going to continue to dig into this case. This is far, far from over. July 23rd is the sentencing at 9 a.m. We will be reporting on that. And I have one really big thing in the works. I don't want to speak on it just in case it falls through, but if it doesn't and everything works as planned, it will be huge. So I want you to stay tuned. Other than that, that's what we have for you. Please, please have a very safe 4th of July. Thank you for being here. Please give us a like and subscribe. Please do something nice for yourself today. Be kind, but more importantly, be kind to your dog. Bye, guys.